Welcome to She Sells Radio. Right off the bat, I have to tell you that I am so excited for today's interview because my guest today is someone who I simply adore, and I know that you will as well. And I'll share her formal background in a second. But before I do, I want to let you know that our guest, Kris Jones, is one of the brightest minds that I've ever met in branding and copywriting. And I've met a lot of people in this space, and she's truly one of the best. She's a brilliant entrepreneur. She's an incredible mom. She's also a former client of mine who I just loved working with. You know how you have those clients you work with and you're like, oh, I want to spend my whole life like on a call with you. Like she is that person. And she's just a phenomenal human being. And so if you want to uplevel your brand and learn how to create website copy and positioning that really sells you as the best in your industry, then today's interview is going to be for you. And I'll share just a bit of her formal bio and background so you know the caliber of who our guest is today. And then we'll get into the interview. So Kris Jones is a StoryBrand guide and founder of Red Door Designs, mentored by StoryBrand founder Donald Miller himself. And with over 20 years of experience and clients like Nike under her belt, Kris has been able to achieve incredible transformations for her clients, including increasing revenue by 300%, record-breaking lead calls and clients booked. I love this next one. This excites me. Scaling from 30K months to 300K months. Who doesn't want that? And charging 6 times more for the same service. Again, who doesn't want this? Like, this woman is brilliant. Kris is extremely passionate about helping self-employed women get website copy that sells so they can double their revenue and focus on what they do best. Kris, welcome to She Sells Radio. We're so excited to have you here today.
I could not be more thrilled to be here today too. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so fun. We were chatting before and I was like, I will literally spend the whole time just like catching up with you and hearing how you are and talking about mom life if we don't get into the interview. So I was like, let's hit record because I know there's so much for you to share today. So we're going to get into all of your genius in the world of storytelling and copywriting. But before we do, I want to just give everyone a little bit of context for your background. So how did you get into this whole world of branding and copywriting? How did it become, the thing, the gift that you now offer to the world?
Yeah, well, it's funny because when I was in college, this is kind of like pre-internet days, which tells you I've been at this for a while. So websites weren't really even a thing. I didn't even know graphic design was a thing. And so I majored in education, and then I enjoyed my education, but after college, I just knew I wasn't passionate about that path. And so I took off to Europe for like a year and a half. And I ended up in Turkey, of all places, on the southern coast of Turkey. And I don't know if anyone's ever done any long-term traveling, you know that Australians know how to travel. So I befriended these 2 Australian women, and both of them were graphic designers. And we spent months together traveling and hanging out together, and mostly in Turkey. And so through them, I really learned about the profession and what it was all about. And I thought, when I get back home, I'm gonna try this. And what happened was the very first class I took, within the first 3 minutes, I just knew, oh my gosh, this is my thing. This is my calling.
I love that feeling.
And it's one of those those kind of common things that you hear, like all of a sudden I look back in my past and I was doing graphic design and messaging as an 8-year-old kid. I was having my friends over to play and saying, let's design a trifold brochure. It was I'm not joking.
I love you.
This is what I was doing for fun. And
that is great.
And I could, there are dozens of things like that where when I look back at my childhood, I'm like, oh yeah, of course.
Like, the writing was on the wall.
Totally, literally and figuratively. Yeah. And so I just dove in and I was obsessed, and I just cared about nothing else for many, many, many years. And I think that I definitely did a bunch of work. I worked, in-house at design firms, and then became an art director at an ad agency, and worked in-house at Nike and Adidas. And I got all this like really rich education around how marketing works, how messaging works, how design works. And I really started out as a visual storyteller. And then over the years, I started to realize that the design kind of isn't enough of a story to tell. It's very important. And I'm still so passionate about design. But what I discovered was that if you don't have the right words, your design, you can't lean on just your design. You've got to have the right words to communicate what you do, how you're different, to connect with people. And so as my career evolved, I really started to prioritize the messaging piece. And I became kind of this story expert. And again, just dove deep into that, learning and practicing that approach, and witnessed the results of the approach, which was even more exciting. So although I love beautiful design, I really kind of think the foundation of all effective marketing begins with clear messaging.
Yeah. Which, you and I were chatting about this a bit in the pre-chat. It's like, it's the hardest thing to do for most business owners. Why is it so hard for us to come up with effective messaging for ourselves?
It is downright impossible. I am not kidding you. 100% of the calls I get on with clients, they say the same thing. Why is this so darn hard? Why can't I do this? I'm college educated. I'm a good writer. Why can't I do this for myself? And the beautiful thing is, it's not, because anything's wrong with you. It's really because you're too close to yourself and you're too close to your own business. And it truly is a matter of, you are inside the bottle trying to read the label that you can only read from the outside. And so the problem that happens with this is that people keep trying to do it themselves, and they don't have the perspective they need. And so years go by and they're not proud of, or their messaging's not working for them. And they finally outsource it to a copywriter. And I mean, copywriters can cost 10, 20, 30, 40. I had a client who paid $60,000 for a website copy, a sales
just for
page.
The copy, not
just
even
the sales page. And I don't know if that included the design or not. I'm not sure. I don't think it did. But the reality is, when you hire a copywriter, they go and create your copy in a silo. And when they do that, I think everyone has really good intentions, but when you are your own business, it needs to feel like your own voice. And so after many years of doing that same thing, and then coming back and forth and time consuming revisions, and I realized and developed a process that was collaborative. So it was the best of both worlds. The business owner or the solopreneur can get the perspective from an expert, but we do it together. So every word really resonates with your voice. And I'm able to ask the questions to pull out those parts of you that are genius, and those nuances of your industry and your voice, and even the technicalities of your industry that nobody would know unless they were really experienced in your industry. So there's so many benefits to the process. And what happens is, it takes a lot less time to do it, and it feels right. It feels like your voice.
That's so good. And it's so helpful too, because I'll just, say as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, it's like, to your point, you don't see it when you're in it, and it can feel daunting. It can feel overwhelming, even if you have the prompts yourself to sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to answer this question and that question. Cause you still, like, I'm guessing you probably see this with clients. They like minimize things. They think that things they've done aren't that important, or they just don't quite get it with the positioning. But if someone can pull it out of you, it doesn't feel quite so painful. It probably is actually fun, right? Is having to like sit there and figure it out yourself. So yeah, that's, oh, okay. It's so good. So Kris, what are some of the things I want to talk a little bit about storytelling, because you're a StoryBrand certified guide. I know you're great at doing this, and I think people are getting it more and more today, that stories are what sell, that our brains love stories. That's powerful for selling, but I think it can also feel a little bit, again, like it can feel overwhelming or daunting. Like, how do I know what stories to tell? What are the keys to telling a good story where I'm not boring people? So what are some of the keys for effective storytelling that helps sell your product or service?
Oh, I love that question. Okay. So the main thing, number one, I just want to honor the challenge of storytelling, because we've grown up with these like once upon a time stories. And then now in this modern day and age, we understand story is important. I'm a business owner. I've got to have a good story. What's my story? But these types of stories are kind of quite different from the once upon a time stories. So there can be confusion around really what is the story anyway. And I think it's helpful to really define the recipe of every story. So there are components that are part of every story you've ever heard, every movie you've ever watched, and every book you've ever read. And they're quite simple when you boil it down. And that's the beauty of the StoryBrand approach, is it boils it down to like kind of the essentials. And then I have taken that and boiled it down even more. So we'll keep it really, really simple.
Awesome.
But the reality is every hero has a story, and that story begins with a hero that has a problem. So every story begins with a hero who has a problem. And then eventually, about 20 minutes into a movie, you meet a guide. The guide knows how to solve the problem because they've been there, done that. And the guide has a plan, a very clear plan that they can give to the hero. And the plan calls that hero to action. So that's why your calls to action are actually really important, because they establish you as the guide and your customer as the hero. And so the guide gives the hero a plan and calls them to action. And then the reality is, if the hero follows that plan and does the work and is motivated into action, then they will experience success. And one of the roles of the guide is to really paint a picture of what success actually does look like, what it feels like. And so, when I boil down these 3 steps, how do they translate to your actual website, right? It's like, okay, I get it. There's a hero with a problem who meets a guide with a plan and shows them what success it looks like and that it's possible. But when you translate this to your website, the one overarching thing I want to just make sure that everybody gets, and if you take nothing else away from this interview, it's the fact that you are the guide and your client or your customer is the hero. And there's only room for one hero in every story. And so the mistake I witnessed time and time again, I'm talking about probably 99% of the websites online today, the business owner, and this is just, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, it's not an ego thing. It's just purely a knowledge thing. So once you know this, you're going to start identifying it. But most businesses establish themselves as the hero. And we do that through a lot of I, me, we language. It's all about us, because we're like, okay, it's my website. Of course, I'm going to talk about myself. Like, people want to know about me. But when you establish yourself as the hero, there's only room for one hero in a story. So you've just kicked your client out of a narrative with you. You've kicked them out of the story.
That's
And
so important.
yes,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, it's really powerful. And so much of it, I mean, if not all of it, happens subconsciously. So they don't feel connected to you. They leave your website because they're like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it, right? They don't understand why. You've just kicked them out of the story and there's no room for them. They don't see themselves on your website.
Wow. Oh my. So if we're having an aha moment, if somebody's listening is having an aha moment, it's like, oh my gosh, I made myself the hero. Didn't mean to do that, but I have. Like, where do we start? How do we start to shift our language, shift our positioning to really elevate the customer as the hero?
Oh, okay. So the beautiful thing is it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. So the number one thing that we can do is really, remember I said the first thing about every story is that a hero has a problem. And so start really brainstorming what problems your clients come to you with. What is it? Are they having a hard time writing their own copy? Are they struggling with, moving into the 6-figure realm? Do they have, a home that needs cleaning and they're just fed up with just how dirty the place is? Like, what are they struggling with? And the most important thing you can do, like pretty high up on your website, is just articulate those problems. And there's some really cool things that happen when you do that. It sounds super simple. Just articulate the problems, but you really want to articulate it in a way that when they read it, they're like, she gets me. Oh my gosh, she gets me. And the first thing that happens is they feel a connection. And then the second thing that happens is they automatically think, again, this all happens subconsciously, but they automatically think if you can articulate their problem, then you are the best one to solve it. So what's cool about this is that people don't buy from the best. And I work with a lot of experts who really are the best in their field. But people don't buy from the best. They buy from the one that they feel the most connected to. And that happens through articulating the problems that they're experiencing.
Interesting. Wow. This is, when you say it, it's like, of course, right? It makes perfect sense. But to your point of when you're just doing it and you can't see the label from inside the jar, like, we don't think about that necessarily unless we're trained in this. So this is brilliant. And I want to speak a little bit too to the, like, if you have, first of all, I would imagine most people listening have a website. We do have quite a few sales professionals as well and sales leaders who are listening who may not have a website, but I would say everyone should have a personal website today. Like, I'm just going to throw it out there. You should all have a website. So on the homepage of your website, I know one of the things you teach people to do is literally structure it and write the copy in a way that repels the wrong people and attracts the right ones. And I think sometimes people are so afraid to niche down and say something that's going to, like, just turn people off. But I would love if you could speak to, number one, why is that important? Why do we want to repel people from our homepage? It sounds counterintuitive, but why? And then two, how do we start to do that? What are some tips and keys for doing that?
Yeah, well, we really do want to repel the wrong people. I mean, that's a sign that your website is doing a job for you. They are not attracting the people that you really want to work with. So it's an important thing to weave into your website. You don't want to cast such a wide net that you're working with everybody, and then you're dreading some of the projects that you're working on because they're just not the people that fill you up. So you do that. Really, I'm going to repeat just briefly one more time. Like, when you articulate the problem, the right people that are experiencing that problem are really going to connect with you. And the people that aren't experiencing that problem are not going to connect with you. They're going to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm not really dealing with that. And so already they're not connecting. When you're you're articulating the problem in a way that's very detailed and nuanced. And really the problems relate often to emotions that are felt. So frustration, fed up, tired of, confused, not sure where to begin, but they're more clear than that, right? They're more detailed than that. So I usually start out with most websites, below the header section, which really just defines what you do, right? I'm an accountant for entrepreneurs. And then below that, I always start with the hero's problem. And I do that just with usually three lines that are speaking to the three most common problems that I'm hearing from my customers. Okay. And then I like to follow that up with positivity. And so what we do after that is really show them what success looks like. So if you work with me, these are the things that you're going to experience. Now, one of the things that people kind of mix up about this section is really, they talk about features rather than end results. And so features are actually really putting you back into that hero role. Here are the features that, when you work with me, and it's not that there's no place for that. It's just, we don't want to lead with that. So as the guide, your role is to show them what's possible, to paint a picture of what's possible for them once they overcome this challenge or struggle that's kind of halting them. And so this section follows that problem section. And I like to use visuals or icons. I think photography can be a really great way to connect with the right people and to show them what their life is going to feel like after they've worked with you. So, these benefits might be, feel confident about your business. It kind of depends on the industry you're in. Or if it's a weight loss thing, it's like, okay, feel at home in your body, or love the way you look when you love the way you look in the mirror, things like that. So not what's life during the process, but what's life like after they've engaged with you. So that's a really important part. And I think yet another way to repel the wrong people is to show pictures of that happy end result that you create. And you use photography by, do you work with women? Do you work with men? Do you work with older people, younger people? And so photography is a great way to repel the wrong people and attract the right people while you're painting this vision of success.
Wow. There's a few key things I took away. I mean, there's a lot I took away from what you just said, but there's a few key things. I think one is leading with the problem and honing in on the problem. And I love how you shared, start with, after you say, what you do in the header, lead with the problem there. I think a lot of people probably do it differently, right? But honing in on that, developing that. And I feel like I'm curious to get your feedback. Do most people probably shy away from the problem too much, or they're like, I don't want to create too much pain? Or does that show up like people don't go deep enough into the problem in their copy?
Yes. People have resistance to it, a big resistance, because we all want to be positive. We want to be high vibe, and we don't want to be Debbie Downer. But the reality is, there's a lot at stake for these people, and naming the problem, clearly articulating the problem, is really about empathy. It's not about being down. It's like, I am going to meet you right where you are. This is where you are right now. This is what you're struggling with. And I get it. You are not alone, and you are not stuck here. And so that's kind of, it's not all doom and gloom, but it's a very important part of every story. And, one great example of this is you think of going to a movie, like the last movie you went to, right? Our world today is so busy. We're so inundated with information. We've got our phones dinging. We've got emails coming in. We've got kids and businesses, and there's to-do lists that are a mile long, right? But we go into a movies, AKA stories. So you go into a movie, everything goes away, and you are fully immersed and fully engaged in this story for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. What else in our life has that kind of power? And so when you do this right, it's really the same as a movie. Every movie you've watched starts with a hero who has a problem. That opens up that story loop and it pulls us in, and our brains find it 100% irresistible to disengage. Like we cannot disengage until we know that problem has been resolved. And if the problem's resolved 25 minutes into the movie, guess what? People get up and leave. Yeah. So the problem does not get resolved for that hero until the last 10 minutes of the movie. And that's why we stay engaged that long.
It's so helpful to pull in examples of that, because when you hear that, it's kind of an of course moment. So if we can just model off of movies, model off of how things are structured in our sales copy, I mean, it's fun, it's engaging, it's easier. And it's, to me, I love coming back to making your customer the hero. That feels so good. And then something else you said that to me, I never heard it said that way, but I thought it was so interesting was, you know, I've heard, and I teach too, like sell the destination, not the journey. Right. But when you said, when we speak to features, we make ourselves the hero again. I thought, ooh, that's so interesting. I'd never thought about it that way. It's like a little trap we can fall into because we think we got to say, you get this many calls with me, you get this type of blah, blah, blah. But people probably don't care. Like, do you tell people like, just let them ask you that on a call? Or how do we approach that?
That's such a good question, because features are important, but what you want to do at least like the first handful of sections on your website is really create that connection, earn that trust, establish the roles, establish them as the hero and you as the guide. And then eventually they're engaged. They want to know you. They want to learn more, and you've earned their trust for them to spend their time on your website. And so farther down on the page, I think those features are a great thing to include. Absolutely. It's not like there's no place for that type of information, but it really needs to be done strategically and methodically. And so, you know, just like starting with yourself as the guide at the beginning of your website, it's not the right time. You haven't connected and earned the trust to be that role yet. And so back to the movie analogy, it's like 20, 30 minutes into the movie, then the guide enters in, but we've established this connection and knowledge about the hero and their struggle first.
Yeah. So good. It's a fun kind of easy flow to follow. So let me ask you this, because I think kind of the theme of the conversation so far today has been, sometimes you just don't even know, like you don't know you're doing it wrong, or you don't know that there's another way to approach it. You're such a wealth of knowledge in this space. Is there anything I haven't asked you as it pertains to copy, storytelling, you know, homepage design that you think people should know, or that's important to help convert more sales and you know, attract their ideal clients?
Yes, definitely. So there's one piece I mentioned a little bit earlier, which was, you know, the hero has a problem, and then the guide enters in and gives them a plan. And so a really important part of your website is detailing out a very clear plan. But it has to be so simple, because what happens is you're meeting them where they're at. They're having a problem. They're having a struggle. They don't know how to overcome it, which is why they're at your website. And then you're painting this picture of what success looks like for them. And they're like, okay, that's what I want. I want to get there. But I liken it to like the guides on one side of the river and the heroes on the other side of the river. And you're saying, come over to this side. I got the goods. I can help you get here. And they're like, but how? Like, this river is vast and wide, and there are a lot of rapids going on. I don't know how to get across to that side of the river. So the plan, what it does is it tells them, oh, it's not as hard as you think it is. In 3 steps, I'm going to throw 3 giant boulders into this river, and each of those boulders is a step to get to your picture of success. And so the first boulder is always the call to action. What do you want? What action do you want them to take next once they're at your website? Typically it's schedule a call with me. That's probably the most common one. So step 1, schedule a call with me. Step 2, communicates, you'll get a clear plan, or we'll work together and strategize to come up with blah, 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 right? Like, so it's kind of the meat of it. What are you going to do together? It often equates to kind of a custom plan or your custom solution. And then step 3 is always the happy end result. So, if you're a financial planner, it would be schedule a call with me. Step 2, we'll put together a customized retirement plan based on your values and your lifestyle. And then step 3 would be have peace of mind around your retirement and do the things, or spend with joy and ease, right? It's like, imagine spending with joy and ease in retirement, because there's enough money for you to last you. And so the step 3 is always that happy end result. But that plan is a very important piece, because it shows them that there isn't this vast divide between where they are and where they want to be. And it also really shows that you are the guide, and that you know how to take them from A to Z, and that it's not as painful or complicated as it might seem right then.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is so good. You're getting me so lit up and inspired, where I'm like, I think I went and update all the copy on my web. I don't think I've ever said I want to go write copy, but you're literally getting me so excited. Like, we need to revamp this. Like, this is incredible. Kris, in a moment, I want you to tell everyone where they can connect with you. And I want you to talk a little bit too about your offer, because it's phenomenal. Before we do that, final question for you. I love highlighting women on this show who are about success in all areas of life. So obviously on this show, we're all about, financial success and financial abundance and career success, but also about, to me, like, success is happiness at the end of the day. So success in all areas of life, personal, professional. What would you say, as a woman who I think demonstrates that, what would you say is like the number one piece of advice you would give to a woman listening who wants to break through to her next level of success in life? Invest in yourself. It is, you do not have to figure this out on your own. In fact, you usually can't. We all need help with things, but especially when it comes to copywriting for your own business, that perspective is so critical. And the genius is there. It's all in you, but sometimes you just need someone to help pull it out or identify those really important nuggets and ways of showing your value. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. That's one thing I believe in. And one thing I preach is, like, when you invest in yourself, you show yourself that you're worth it. You show the universe that you're worth it. It's like a declaration of whatever the goal is that I have, I am worth having it. This is because I'm so worthy. So, beautiful, beautiful advice there. I love that. Kris, I'd love if you could take a moment and share a little bit. I know you've got a great freebie, and then I also know you have this incredible offer that I usually don't have people come on and like actually talk about their offers, but I want you to talk about it, because you were telling me about it earlier and I was like, oh, it's so good. I think our listeners are going to want to take advantage of it. So can you share a little bit about how people can connect and move forward in working with you? Oh, yes, absolutely. Great. Yeah. So I'm working with
female entrepreneurs. And the offer is essentially StoryBrand website copy that sells in 2.5 hours flat. So the people I work with, they're busy, they're overwhelmed, they don't have the time for this long, arduous process of back and forth. And it's a collaborative program. So the whole experience is 2.5 hours. And then you get website copy that is story branded, tells your story, and converts. So it's really, it's designed for those busy entrepreneurs who are just ready to double their conversions and have a website that actually does the work of selling for them, so they can just focus more on what they love.
Oh my gosh. When you told me you have your homepage copy done 2.5 hours flat, I was like, oh, amazing. Like done, sold. And it's such a no-brainer. So where can people go to find out about that and to get signed up for a session with you?
So that is at grow.reddoordesigns.com. That's grow.red with 2 D's, Red Door Designs with an S at the end.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And then I know you've also got a really cool freebie too that people can take advantage of. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there's a free downloadable video and worksheet that helps you confidently answer that question, what do you do, in a way that really attracts the right clients and gives you just a lot more confident about communicating your work. And the really great thing about this freebie is that it does help you, communicate your work and your value, but the when you go through the process, which it doesn't take more than 15-20 minutes, you can use that copy. You can repurpose it on your LinkedIn profile. You can put it on all your social media profiles. You can even weave it into your website. So it's kind of like this workhorse that you can repurpose. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel with your story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And we're going to link all this in the show notes, but that's claritywithkris.com, right? With Kris with a K. So
yes, that's claritywithkris.com, Kris with a K. Yep.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Kris, you have this has been so fun. I knew I was going to love the conversation, but you have really, I think, broken down and made something that feels so overwhelming, so simple, and so approachable. And so I want to say thank you for doing that, because that's no easy feat, but it just goes to show how having the right process and framework and the right guide to help you makes all the difference in the world. So super grateful for you coming on and sharing your genius and your brilliance with all of us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I feel the same about you. I'm continually inspired by how you're showing up and what you're putting into the world and witnessing the growth of your own business. It's been so inspiring for me. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. All right. To you, my listener, I want you to go connect with Kris. Again, we're going to link everything in the show notes, but I would highly encourage you, take advantage of that strategy session. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, I know I need to improve my copy. I know I could do a better job there, and I want to get it done fast and with a pro. So take advantage of that. Go connect with Kris. And I'm so grateful for you being a member of the She Sells community. Super grateful to have you as a listener of this show. And I'll see you on our next episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.